Hello and welcome to Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing the Island of El Dorado, the Legend Edition, which includes the new expansion called Revenge. Before we do that, we're going to talk about the original game first and what's actually in this box. The Island of El Dorado was released in 2018 by El Dorado Games. It played 2 to 4 players in about 25 to 80 minutes. It had some resource control, some area control, but it really played like a pick up and deliver type game. You were trying to be the first person to complete 4 offerings to 4 different shrines, meaning you had to find the shrines, you had to explore, and then you had to use resources that you accumulated to make your offerings to these shrines. And the person who got to make the offerings to all 4 shrines first would win the game. They then released the Thieves of El Dorado, which, aside from adding a few extra factions so you could play with more players, added the Thieves faction, which could steal from other players, but were ultimately trying to win the game in the same way by making their 4 offerings. Now we have the Revenge of El Dorado, where a player can play as the island itself, and this box, which will allow you to place the original game and the Thieves expansion into one box with the Revenge expansion, so you can have everything together. It also changes the game so it plays 1 to 8 players. There's a solo mode, and there's also a 1 versus all mode where everybody can play against the island. And now there's also team modes and a co-op mode, though it does change the time to play to 40 to 160 minutes. So with all that being said, let's see what you actually get in this new Legend Edition. First of all, I will point out, because you probably can't see it, this has a magnetic clasp for opening, which is very nice. El Dorado is really, they do really good components. Everything about their game is really high quality. I'll show you actually here, the box itself underneath it. Let me change my camera a bit here. You can see just the lengths that they go to make their game really stand out. And we'll get back to what's inside. Here we have our new rulebook, how to play. And they did this with the original expansion as well, Thieves of El Dorado. They rehashed how to play the game. So instead of having to hang on to 3 rule books, this new rule book will actually tell you everything you need to know and how to play each game. They also tell you how to organize the game, which I will show you after we get through going through this box. I'll actually get the base game and the other expansion all put into the box so you can see what it looks like. Again, this is a full rules explanation. This isn't just the new stuff. So it's handy that you don't have to deal with multiple rule books anymore. We've got our new role, which is the Guardian. They can do a whole bunch of fun things, including putting out monsters. We've got new play modes, including the cooperative mode, 1 versus all, with 1 player as the island. You've got a solo mode for the Thieves, which was actually added in that expansion. And you've got team mode as well, where you can play multiple sets of duos against each other. And now you have the Legend of El Dorado, a campaign mode for 2 to 5 players. And you got a little tracking sheet here on the back, if you want to keep track of how well you're doing. And then finally, explanations for some of the tiles. All right, so let's take a few of these modules out of here. All of these little plastic pieces are going to pull out because, again, this is going to be where your base components are going to go as well as the new stuff. So let's go ahead and pull these out. These aren't quite game tray quality. They're a little thinner than that. You can see here that they're not quite as good as they could be, but they are still very nice. If you've ever played Spirit Island, these are very similar, I would say, to that kind of insert, which was a good insert. We've got some new player boards here. So players will play as a particular color, and inside that color, they'll have multiple options. So you've got a board here essentially for every color player, and including the thieves. This is the thieves color. And these are new because you can now upgrade your buildings. So I'll show you once we get to putting everything together. Your player boards will go here. They'll sit in this slot here. And now you can actually upgrade your buildings. It used to be you could only put out 2 buildings, a farmhouse and a fort, I believe. Now you actually have the option of upgrading those buildings with new pieces to turn your farmhouse into a capital and your fort into a stronghold, which obviously gives you different strengths, different advantages. So that's interesting. That's a new thing that's been added. Here is the Guardians board, the new player. And it just tells you the things you can do, how you put out your different pieces. Again, if you're playing one versus all, there's different objectives, but if you're just using the Guardian as a player, he's still just trying to complete the 4 offerings like everybody else. We've got some new heroes here. So again, just to show you, this is what ultimately you'll be playing, how you'll be playing. Your character will slot into here. And whenever you get a character board like this, you have 2 options. And they are essentially the same as far as your buildings go. Your buildings require the same amount of resources, but they each have a special ability. This one can be gathered at any point during their turn. And this one gains 2 strength if you're the first to play an offering on a shrine. Normally, when you put an offering on a shrine, you get +1 strength. This person gets +2. So little variability there with player powers and a choice of 2 of them. Let's see what else we got left in the box. We've got the bottom insert here for a whole bunch of our player pieces. This is basically where each player's colored pieces will go. We've got some alternate objective cards. So this is a way to play the game with a different winning condition. Instead of the 4 offerings, you can simply pull a card at random or just decide on one. So if you're occupying 6 food tiles at the beginning of your turn, you win the game. It just changes how you win the game, your win condition. So a little bit of variability added in there. We've got a tuck box here. And these are going to be the cards for the Guardian player. I believe they only get these when you're playing the one versus all mode. You don't get these as a player. And these are basically bad things that are going to happen. This one lets you put a giant out at the nearest unoccupied tile adjacent to an island shrine. And then if you can't do that, it has a different place where you can put it. Obviously, there's multiple of these, as you can see. And the way that these work is they stay out a round. So you're going to have a deck of these. You're going to flip the next card over. That effect happens. The next turn, it's going to move over to the right, and another card is going to come out, and then eventually it'll move to the discard. So these events occur over multiple rounds. There's a decay card here, and just you have to pay 6 gold to remove it. It downgrades all upgraded buildings, which is really bad. So these are all the things that the island essentially can do to you when you're playing one versus all. And it's nice that they give you the little tuck box. It even appears, I don't know offhand, and I'm not going to go through the effort of sleeving all this right now, but it appears that the tuck box will have enough space that you could sleeve them, There's a little bit of height left, and there's definitely some width left. So I think if you sleeve these, as long as the sleeves were thin enough, you could get away with them still being in the tuck box. So our other pieces that we pulled out here earlier, here are all basically the meeples for the island. And they have several of them. And these are all these, the events that we saw. These are all creatures that they can put out on the board. Got a couple of these guys, which looks like they're dragging trees or something behind them. Looks like those are all the same. What else do we have here? We got some, these are just little animals or beasts that the Guardian can put out. You can see that kind of looks like a jaguar or something. And those are all the same. These are your little offering pieces. So if you're playing the game as the Guardian and it's not one versus all, you'll need these. These are what you put out at the different temples to show that you've made an offering there. So there's 3 of those. There are 4 offerings. The last one is in the caves, and it is actually something you acquire. It's an item, and it can be taken from you if you're defeated in battle. So it moves around with you. This is actually the player piece. If you play as the Guardian, this will be the piece that's out on the board. We've got more of these creature tokens. These look like wolves, snakes, and I'm going to say that's a hippo. We've got an additional bag. Every player color has a bag, so it doesn't appear to be a bag for the Revenge player, but this is for the yellow player, the one that we got the new player board for. We've got some cubes here. I actually don't know what these are for, but just little wooden cubes. It may be for the different events that the Guardian player puts out. Red cubes, which are definitely going to be for the Guardian player to use because that's their color. Or maroon, I guess. These are the new pieces for the Thief faction, so they can upgrade their buildings as well. Because, like I said, with the original players, they can upgrade their buildings, so can the Thief. So the Thief has, normally they have a piece that fits inside, that'll fit inside this. And basically this piece will sit over top of it to show that they've upgraded it. The same with these. These will sit over top of their regular pieces. And I'll show you that when we get to putting everything together at the end there. So that's that container. Another container here. We've got some extra tiles. This was part of the Kickstarter. I believe these are Kickstarter exclusive. I could be wrong. These are just new tiles to add out. And they do have special rules, which were in the rulebook. These are the new pieces for that faction that they just added, this yellow faction. So another cool thing about this game is that they give you meeples for your player factions that actually correlate to what they look like. So if you're playing this character here, you're going to be playing as this meeple. Instead of just giving you one generic yellow meeple, they actually give you one that matches the artwork, which is really cool. And if you play this character, you're going to play as this meeple. And every faction has that, which is really interesting. So this is what the normal pieces look like in the base game. So you have your farmhouses, which you have 2. And you have your fort. Every player is going to have those pieces. And then they're going to have, along with that, a certain number of workers that you can put out. They harvest for you. And there's actually, again, El Dorado goes a little extra on these things. They have male and female versions. And then your 3 offerings that you'll have that you put out. And the last thing, at least in this box here, We have more cubes. And now that I see all these cubes, these are obviously for the different players. So we have the yellow player pieces here. They have yellow cubes. So that's something new that they can do. So I just thought of this. This is what the cubes are for. You've got these cubes now to track your different stats now that your stats on your buildings can change. So you'll have one here to show the strength of your capital. You'll have one here to show the strength of your stronghold, and so forth, so on. All right, new pieces here. So these are the new upgraded pieces. One in each player color, but I'll go and show you the yellow since we have the yellow out here. So if you build a farm, you're going to put this farm out. And if you decide to upgrade your farm to a capital, you're going to put this piece like so to show that it's now your capital. Another bag here for the forts. Works the same way. Place out your fort, and then if you choose to, upgrade it to your stronghold, like so. And that's it. That's everything you get in the Legend Edition box that came with the Revenge expansion. Now we're going to go and I'm going to show you how everything fits into this new system and how to organize it. Okay, we're back, and now we have everything set up with all of the components from the base game and the first expansion now put into our different organizers so that I can show you how it all fits together. Here you're seeing the base of the box, which has all the bags for the different player pieces, including the new players we just got in this yellow bag that just fit into their own little box down here. You could probably take everything out of the bags now that you have this nice little organizer, but they are nice bags, so don't really see a reason to do that. We've got our spot for our island cards, for the Guardian cards, which were already in there. We've got another little spot here for just some miscellaneous things. This is one of the meeples that came with the Thieves expansion. This is somebody you can run into the cave. We've got our little alternate win condition cards down here, as well as a few other pieces that I just couldn't quite find a space for anywhere else. And then we've got our resource cards here. Now, you're going to store them down here, but when you play, you actually got a spot for them. So here is one of the organizers that came with the game. And we've got our temple pieces here and our regular tiles here. I've just got the temple tiles on top, as well as the new special tiles, just so you could see them. But when you play the game, you're actually going to use these other three spots to store the cards. So there's basically three resources in the game. You got food, you've got gold, and you've got wood. So this is basically something you'll have out on the board at all times, or next to the board, I should say, just so you have easy access to these resources and the tiles and all that. But when you're picking up for the night, these cards will go back into their tuck box. And they'll go down here. Now we can put everything else back together. We've got our player boards here. I showed you one of these, but again, they're double-sided. And these you're just going to split, and they're going to fit right here on the side. Then we've got our larger new player boards. And these are just going to fit across like so. Again, split evenly, just so you have a nice base to put everything on. And then on top of all that, you're going to put your new dividers. Here's one of our other boxes. This is just for all the Guardian pieces. And here, like this other box we showed here, these will be where your Guardian cards will go. So you'll have a draw deck here, a discard deck here, and you'll put one card in front. The next round, it'll move over to the right. And then the round after that, it'll go to discard. So this is another thing that's just going to be out to make playing the game easier, basically. So you have all your pieces in hand. And then the final piece includes most of our cave tiles here. So this is the cave exit. You have to find the cave entrance in the regular tiles. We've got our little doubloons here, extra pieces. This is the last offering. When you make an offering to the temple in the cave, you're gonna get this grail, which goes around with you. Another little creature piece, like that large one we saw earlier. This is just a creature that you can encounter in the caves. And then you've got all your dice here set up, and that'll just pop in like that. We've got our new rule book, which you don't really need the previous two, but you could hang on to them if you want to. And then that all goes together in the magnetic clasp there. And that's it. That's everything in the Island of El Dorado, including the base game, the Thieves expansion, and now the Revenge expansion. Hey everybody, I hope you liked what you saw in our video today. If the Island of El Dorado looks interesting to you and you're looking for a copy of it, as of the filming of this video, it is still possible to late pledge for the latest expansion, which will get you the Revenge expansion and the Legend box. And I believe you can add on the base game and the Thieves expansion, or you can find it locally. The Island of El Dorado was the first game released by El Dorado, which is their production company. They currently have their second game, The Age of Atlantis, on Kickstarter now. And if the Island of El Dorado is either a game you've played and enjoyed, or if you just think it looks interesting, I highly recommend you check out their Kickstarter for The Age of Atlantis. It's a much more in-depth game, a little bit heavier with worker placement. It's got kind of a Lords of Hellas Greek / mech theme going on, but it looks really interesting to me, and I think it'd be worth your time. That's it for us today. Thank you again for watching our unboxings on Board Game Gumbo.